Well, I'm live. Okay, so what we're starting with here is a quick collection that I made from photos that I took this morning. I have 140 images in here. Not all of them have JPEGs with them, and anything that does have a RAW file, I have made a virtual copy of that RAW file so that we can see the as imported versus the as finished. It's very exciting. So, look at, I guess the other thing I should probably do is make sure that I can see that window. Well, I won't be able to see that window. Okay. Well, if anybody chats at me, I'm not going to be able to see it. I'll check occasionally. Very exciting. So, I'm going to start at the top here. This image. This image as... Oh, let me make sure that my video settings are, night shift and dark mode. Well, dark mode doesn't make any difference. So this is the JPEG that the camera generated. We have pretty good detail. A little bit of blur in the ant, but not bad overall. This is a little dark. You can see that there's not a whole lot of activity in the upper quarter of the histogram here. Here is the image as made in the RAW file. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop into develop mode. I'm going to try and forget what I just saw with the JPEG mode and try and edit this in the way that I normally would. The JPEGs are the custom image setting for reversal film as provided in the Pentax stock firmware. And this camera is the K3 Mark III. These photos, the way that I see them in the field, should be the embedded JPEG preview. And so when I look at them later, one of the things that I do tend to notice is that the camera, when it does auto white balance, it picks something for the whole length of the day and basically sticks with it. 5218 for the values on the white balance are pretty warm. I think this one's a little green for my taste, but maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to reset this to default, and we're going to start editing here. So first thing I'm going to do is bring the exposure up. I want to bring the highlights back down just a touch, just to see that's not doing what I want it to. Whites isn't going to do what I want it to either. So we'll touch the yellows here in a second. I want to bring the blacks down, so what I'm looking for is for my shadows to just start to kiss clipping. So that's probably okay. I don't feel like I need to mess with dehaze or the texture, clarity, or dehaze on this photo. I'm not after super high detail here. I mean, I'm at ISO 800. I'm not super happy with the noise profile behind the disc flowers. Disc flowers? Wish I could remember my flower part names. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and edit the color a little bit. So, quick tip for checking your white balance. How I tend to do white balance is I will go adjust the temperature first, then adjust the tint, and then do one more pass at the temperature to see what feels right, and then go back to the last setting before that and just see how you feel about things. Like, so that's pretty good. I like that. I might go a little bit warmer. Maybe a little bit more than 126. And then drag our green in a little bit, and again, no, that's too green. It's subtle, but that's fine. Alright, so the next step is going to be to go to the color mixer, and I have luminance selected because luminance is where I do most of my work in the color mixer. So I'm going to just drag our luminance down on the yellow channel a little bit. So you can bring it up and you can ruin your yellows, and then you can bring it down. And what we're doing is we're changing the brightness of the yellow relative to the rest of the picture so that when I come back in here and I bring the highlights up, it doesn't quite blow out the yellow in the same way. Alright, so yeah, I'm not sure what to do about the crop on this picture. I didn't do a very good job framing this. Let's just go with these three. What? Distortion? No. So this isn't award-winning by any stretch of the imagination, but it's okay. As a reminder, here's where we started. That's where we're ending. Except now we do the last part, which is the tone curve, and as I've said before, just little slight adjustments for the tone curve is usually all you need. Alright, so import, finished. I'm still not happy with this white balance situation. I guess that's okay. Alright, so as a reminder, here's the JPEG. Here's the raw unprocessed. And here's what I've done as quote-unquote final product. Okay, so moving on, here's our next picture. This is a jewel weed. First thing I'm going to check is there anything on clipping? Is there anything blown out in the highlights? So you have a couple spots on the stem of the flower, but that's not a big problem. Nothing in the leaves, nothing in the highlights in the background. Why is... Oh. I'm being complained at because my bit rate is too low and I don't know how to... Let's see. Do you think I can make that change while I'm actually streaming? I bet you I probably can't. Nope. Oh yeah, I can. So let's say 3,500. No, not 35,000. Sorry, I'm editing a video setting. Be interesting to see what happens to the stream. So I just caused it to hiccup a little bit there. I only want 6,800. Well, alright. Okay, it says good connection, whatever. Okay, so, for this one, I don't have to bring the exposure up very much. As I do that, if I leave the highlights clipping on, you can see, you know, this is what I'm watching for, is how much of that develops. So maybe, I mean, half a stop feels excessive anyway, because I'm just going to do this to bring the brightness of the flower down. And then we're going to flatten the blacks here. Should say flatten the black levels. I'm just going to go straight for the tone curve on this one. A little bit heavier hand here. I'm going to come back in and bring the exposure back down. So already, from where we started, you've got that much more pop in the color, and I haven't done anything to touch color. This is just brightness and tone mapping. Now I'm not super happy with where we are with the actual color balance here, so I want to bring this down, temperature down a little bit, and bring the greens up in the tint. And I think that's where I'm going to leave this one. As shot, as processed. So here's your camera JPEG. Wait. Yeah, here's your camera JPEG. Here's as shot. And here's as processed. Oh, let me turn off the highlights. So that's pretty. I'm pretty happy with that. All right, we got some Dawn Redwood. I think Dawn Redwood. I don't know. Might be Pond Cypress. I can't keep my taxodium straight. Just checking other notifications. Can't stream unless you have an attention problem. So the world's most exciting thing is listening to somebody. Check up on their stuff. Alright, so here's our JPEG. Here's our... This really highlights the difference in color balance that Pentax applies to that reversal film preset. I like it. I like the bluer, colder. Apparently, the hot stuff on photography circles is to make all your stuff warm, and like, I don't. This is bad. This isn't what reality looks like. And I mean, I can go way too warm and then bring the greens back down, but I don't want to. All right, so let's edit this one the way I'd want to. Bring our exposure up a little bit. Bring our black level down. Bring our highlights down. Basically, I'm starting by kind of knocking down the contrast just a little bit. Now we're going to mess with the color temperature. So what I'm looking at here when I make this adjustment is the way that the stems look. I want the stems to look like, you know, a redwood tree. And again, when this is not right, this is too yellow. Alright, so we'll call that good. And then, just for giggles, I want to see what this looks like in black and white. Yeah, there's no red in there. Yeah, this isn't worth it. Okay, so back to our tone curve. I can already tell I want to do more to the color balance. That's all I'm going to do, the tone curve. There we go. Yeah, I like that. So again, as review, this is the back of the camera, raw as Lightroom saw it, and my take. So back of the camera, my take. I can already tell kind of that, generally speaking, I'm doing the back of the camera plus a little bit of brightness. Presumably the people at Pentax would have developed the reversal film to mimic some kind of negative film. I don't know which one. They're not Fuji, so they don't publish which one, and I think at this point if they did say which one, then Fuji would get mad at them. But since, of course, I learned photography by starting with various color films and Pentax MX, you know, the film was what made those decisions on what my images should look like. So it makes sense that I would start from a point of being informed by what the film simulation looks like. I mean, if I were to ever change systems, I would probably go with Fuji, if only because this work is very tedious for me. I don't super enjoy doing it. And having access to in-camera JPEG experiences that are more meaningful would be very rewarding for me, I think. But anyway, so moving on, we have these extremely well lit, I don't know, rudbeckia or some kind of Asteraceae flower. Now this is interesting because as you look at these two pictures back to back, this is the JPEG, this is the RAW file, you actually see there's not a whole lot of difference overall in the tone, but if I highlight, so this is your shadow clipping, this is the JPEG, and here's the RAW file. So there's no shadow clipping in the RAW file, or if there is, it's a pixel or two, versus everywhere. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring our exposure up a little bit to brighten up the flowers. We're going to bring our black level down just till we get the whiffs, the faintest whiffs of clipping. So we have one spot technically that's clipping. What happened here? Alright, and I want to just play with the vibrance for a second. I don't use vibrance and saturation all that much. I'm thinking a little bit of boost in both is good here, because of course the next step is for me to pop into the luminance setting for yellow. Oh boy, not much. Alright, and back to the tone curve and black levels. So you can see, I don't know why it's showing me something when I'm starting to make an adjustment. But when I let go, this is all that's left. Alright, I think I'm just check and see. Yeah. Alright, so remove chromatic aberration is a setting that I've grown to like. You can see around the edges of the flower, we've got these red fringes right here as well. When I check remove chromatic aberrations, it does take care of that for me. This is something I've really only started to notice now that I'm kind of printing my work, or well, having my work printed so that I can show it at work. I've looked at a couple of my older photos and noticed that the chromatic aberrations are obvious, and I wish that I had paid attention to this kind of thing, but this is sort of the magic of learning by experience rather than, you know, trying or consulting with experts before you go spending money on stuff. So that's exciting. Now, worth talking about briefly is the profile corrections. I tend not to use this. What this is doing is two things: a distortion correction, and it's also applying vignetting correction. Now on this photo it's not terrible. On most of the photos that I take with my film mirror lenses, the vignetting, I really feel like the vignetting and distortion kind of adds something to the photos. It's ironic considering that I really think that I would do really well with that 50mm f1.4 star lens that's like super well corrected and amazing and sharp from wide open and everything. The ultra modern approach to lens design has produced images that are extremely clinical, and it's just kind of a disappointing contrast. But anyway, this lens, this is the limited 20-40 zoom, which I really like the characteristic of. No, it's not. This is the 15. Sorry. So this is a 15mm wide angle, really up close, right in there with these flowers. And again, so here's your JPEG. Here's your unprocessed RAW file. here's my take. I actually want to do one thing real quick, which is just a little bit of this, and then just the slightest kiss of green. Alright, so there we go, one more time. You can see in the leaves that difference in vibrant saturation and the color temperature. So there it is before temperature correction. There it is after. It's subtle, but it's enough. Okay. Oh, this is going to be a challenge. This isn't even a particularly good image. 1 second. It isn't a particularly good image, but it is an interesting editing challenge. So, alright, so we're going to go... There's not really a whole lot I can do with exposure, because now I'm clipping out on the flower. Okay. Now, one thing that's worth noting is that the tone curve is doing some work that's similar to how film works. The magic of the modern era is that, like at ISO 200, the contemporary APS-C sensor in the K3 Mark III is probably giving you something ludicrous like 11 or 12 stops of dynamic range. Film would have been like 5 for an exceptional film stock. 5 stops of latitude. Well, it's not latitude, it's dynamic range. Latitude is something slightly different, I guess. Yeah, anyway, you know, when every shot that you take is an HDR shot, your expectations change a little bit. Alright, so here we're going to go back in and we're going to look at the lens corrections. There's your chromatic aberration. We still have a little bit of purple fringing. Yeah. So we're going to go to defringe, and you got to be careful with this when working with a purple subject, because if you go too far it turns it into that. You don't want that. Well, I should point out what that means. See how around the edges of, as I bring this up, you lose more and more of the purple and it just becomes grayscale. We don't want that. So this is going to be set to like a 2. Even at 2, I'm really actually starting to see right here in this, right here in the center. It's taking away the purple around this. Now we can probably I feel like that got rid of this, but it's leaving the corner of this intact. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. Now let's see if I can make the framing interesting. Probably not. Well, I mean, that's not terrible. Again, this isn't going to be an award-winning shot, but bring the white level down a little bit. Maybe bring the highlights down. No, see, the highlights start to make the flower uninteresting. Alright, well, we can have a little bit of blowout. It's right there. Nobody's going to notice. I mean, I'm not going to print this. It may not even make final export. So, here's your JPEG. Here's your as imported RAW. And here's my crop. So, JPEG, crop. A little bit brighter overall in the shadows especially, but still pretty contrasty. Yeah, anyway. Next up, we got these guys. Not a super amazing picture. And you can see right here that the color balance, I don't like that one either. Alright, first thing we're going to do, because I can see it already, is we're going to do this a little bit. Well, I was expecting more of a difference around the outside edge. I think that's just going to be the case. Alright, so first things first, we're going to futz with the Alright, what does auto do? That's atrocious. Alright, I think there's not a whole lot I can do with this one. This might be a case to play with color grading. Yeah, that's only 200K difference. And quite a bit of tint difference. Alright, we'll try this with color grading instead. So, from the histogram, we've already got dark clipping and highlight clipping, black clipping and highlight clipping, white clipping. Let's apply a tone curve real quick. So I'm not going to mess with anything else in really the exposure. So, color grading. Alright, I'm not very good at color grading, so kind of what I do is I don't look at the image very closely as I start to make adjustments. So we're in the midtones right here. I don't hate that. So you have a brightness for the region, and then the color, the hue. All right. So we're gonna try and do. I'm really starting to make this look like it was poorly processed by Photolab. Now you can see as I'm making these adjustments that the histogram, I don't have any black clipping anymore. Sure, let's go with that. Highlights. I feel like it's got to stay in the yellow region. Too far in either direction and the whole color balance feels like extremely wrong. Yeah, see, I don't know. I don't think this one's salvageable. All I can do is make it worse. Alright, well, I mean, it's an artistic statement, I guess. There's our JPEG. I see part of the problem is I've lost all of the red channel is kind of completely gone. And we can play with that a little bit, because I can do... You can still see the color data is still in there somewhere. Bring saturation up doesn't really do anything. And this is just the result of... That's kind of better. Yeah, see, I've basically turned it back into where it was when we started. It's now pretty close to the JPEG, but slightly brighter. notifications. Thrilling. Alright, so JPEG as imported, as processed. I don't hate it. One thing I'm going to do is clarity. No. Well, we'll bump texture and clarity a little bit. I'm going to add a little contrast just with the contrast slider. Anyway, yeah, what I was explaining with the tone curve is that basically what you're looking at is increasing the contrast of the image. You're moving more and more of the image toward the light and dark regions of the image, and that is effectively taking out that digital sensor HDR effect. If we wanted to make an extreme example of this, let me pop into my unedited here. So I don't know how to quantify this in terms of stops from lightest to darkest, but if I really get in here and I drag my shadows way down and I drag my highlights way down, this really looks like a crushed drugstore print at this point. This is like Kodak gold that the person running the mini lab did not care about. Yeah, it's a very filmic experience, right? So anyway, alright, moving on to this guy. So we got a skipper butterfly on a daylily. This one I can tell already it's a little blue-green for my tastes. So we're going to start. Oop. Oh. Yeah, it helps if I'm looking at the raw photo instead of the JPEG. Alright, so this is, now we're a little warm, we're a little brown in the background. So I'm going to start just by dragging this down. I think that's pretty good. The background's still brown, but the flower is this nice, crisp daylily yellow. This butterfly was not a terribly... I feel like this is a female Zabulon skipper, maybe? You'd think I'd know my butterflies by now. Anyway, so we're on this flower. We got a little bit of dark clipping in the eyes. The black levels are there. We have no highlight clipping at this point, so I'm going to bring the levels up just a skosh. Bring my black level back down again. Bump my brightness, bump my saturation just a touch. A little quick comparison. Alright, so you can already tell we have a lot more contrast. In fact, I'm already worried about the highlights. So tone curve, we're just going to go straight for the tone curve. Again, the slightest little adjustment there. Still see plenty of detail in here. I'm not super happy about that, so we're going to bring our black level back up some. I almost can't believe that that's all it took to give this image pop. But it did. So play with this a little bit more. Maybe like that. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay. JPEG as imported and as processed. Very exciting. Alright, this one I didn't bring the JPEG in for, so we're just going to freehand it. Just making some initial adjustments. So this dehaze slider, what it does is it brings your, you can see it's bringing it's like holding the highs, the white level at whatever, and then it's moving the rest of the histogram progressively more the darker the image gets. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to suss out contrast in the midtones. At least that's how I experience it. So sometimes I use this as a shortcut for kind of an initial pop. I didn't do a very good job focusing this shot. It's kind of the same as just doing what I just did there. And the difference is that now I'm going to give it a little bit of highlight boost as well. The dehaze slider is like a good shortcut for producing some initial contrast though, which is nice. Alright, let's bring the luminance down on the yellow just a touch, and I'm seeing that I'm not super happy with our... There. I feel like that's pretty good. Alright, so as imported, as processed. I feel like the grass is a little bluer in this image than it was in real life, but I kind of enjoy that. I feel like it works well for the contrast with the flower, and I could print this and it would look good on a wall. I'm not super energized by the results looking at it on a screen, but that's the magic of the difference between printing and looking at it on a screen, I guess. Okay, we have a... oh boy. All I know is the plant on our front step is Wallace. Mandevilla vine right here. So we have shadow clipping. I have to imagine that right there... no, we don't have any highlight clipping. Oh, we do have chromatic aberration though. There we go. Alright, so this is a shot that I took with my 55 to 300 telezoom. I don't know where to land on any of the 55 to 300 telezooms that Pentax sells, because I have a an original DA 55 to 300. What is that? 4 to 5.8. That the autofocus failed on. We'll never know because it's hidden behind the... oh, there we go. Yeah, 4 to 5.8. I feel like I liked the images that this lens made more than I like the ones that come out of the current 4.5 to 6.3 pulse motor. But then again, I mean, the background blur is definitely nicer with the newer one because it's got more blades and they're rounded. And the autofocus is hands down way nicer on the new one. But, yeah, I don't know. That's fine. It's got enough detail. It's fine. Alright, so I'm not going to do a whole lot to this. We just need to bring the color balance into... I feel like really that's about it. That's all we need to do. Original, processed. Again, I don't know that this one's going to make the cut, but we can apply a tone curve. Isn't that exciting? Cool. Alright, we got our friend, the silver spotted skipper. Did I get that right? Yeah. The North American silver spotted skipper anyway. I'm sure, well, I know that there's more than one variety with that common name. So we're going to start by bringing our exposure up. Turn on highlight. Okay, I know I want to leave myself a little room to mess with the tone curve, so we're going to kind of back off to there. I don't need to make any further adjustments to tone. I guess this is called tone. Kind of pretty happy with this already, honestly. See what we can do with the color balance. Color balance, we bring the blue in, we bring the green in, because the actual sculpture itself is kind of a blue-green color. And none of that looks right on the butterfly. This is the problem with mixing natural and man-made objects. So I'm going to split the difference. This is pretty okay. I actually don't want to do anything to the shadow levels on this because the body of the butterfly is already pretty dark. Bring the shadows up and then bring the blacks back down. I feel like that's okay. You can see there's more going on there. Oh, hold on. Not really a whole lot in that. Trying to just match this, the inside of the sphere is gold leaf or something adjacent to it. And so I know what this looks like in real life. And I'm trying to match this to the expectation of that. I can cheat it a little bit, but I don't want to go too far. Alright, so there you go. Here's your dude on an orb. Very tired dude on an orb. As imported, as processed. Alright, so now we've got a tiger swallowtail, yellowmorph on... I feel like this is butterfly bush. But I'm not very good at stuff, so we're gonna Seek really doesn't want to talk to me about what this is, so let's pop into Safari for a second. Yeah, it's a butterfly bush. Hooray, I know something. Okay, so sure. Why do I have 4 of these? Oh, I didn't make a copy of the... Oh, okay. This is no... There's no JPEG. Alright, so basic... I'm clipping out a little bit in the flowers there. I'm going to bring the shadows up. That's with the vibrance a little bit. Still have a little bit of black clipping in the tail of the butterfly, which is fine. Bring the highlights down just a touch. Yeah, I'm not going to mess with that too much. So it should just be a matter of applying a tone curve. Now if I was smart, what I would do is I would set up a preset tone curve so that I could just use that over and over again. Set our crop for 4x5, 8x10. It's one of the other things that I need to get better at is cropping my work to sizes that you can actually print. I don't know if you've ever tried to frame a 10x15 image. May God have mercy on your soul. Okay, so as shot, as processed, not a whole lot of difference in it. A little bit more pop in the flowers. That's about all you got there. And in fact, We're going to develop settings, copy, and paste. It's a little handy little shortcut there. This is f8 320 1 3/20th. It's also f8 1 3/20th. ISO 500 versus 400. I shoot auto ISO. I get some weird ISO values from time to time. Let's try 5x7. No. We'll do 4x5. We'll shrink this a little bit, and we'll basically do the same thing that we did before. So here's this picture. I'm no longer happy with how tall that is. Alright, so there's that picture. There's that picture. I'm no longer happy with how tall that is. Yeah, those feel pretty similarly balanced. So again, as imported, as shot, or as processed, not a whole lot of difference. Alright, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I'm getting bored. I'm not going to finish this tonight. I want to go with one of these ones that's, let's do this one. So this was a camera JPEG that I was particularly smitten with. I think the wind blew the flower a little bit to the left from where I had framed it up originally, but you know, that's okay. You can see we've got some shadow clipping, some black level issues. We don't have any highlights. Pretty good detail in here. Interesting. So this is the 15. It's producing a little bit of bright ring bokeh, which makes the background a little bit busy, but you know, you step back to here and you look at this and you go, that's pretty nice. That's pretty good. Here's our raw file. Our raw file is completely devoid of any life. In addition to being way too warm, the contrast is terrible. We have a little bit of shadow clipping. We have a little bit of highlight. Well, we don't have any highlight clipping. But yeah, it's completely devoid of any life. So let's see what we can do here. So bring the brightness up. I think that's as far as I really want to go. Just play with the highlights a little bit. So the highlights are where you find the sky most of the time, and you've also got the white part at the center of the flower. Oh look, little friends in there. Looks like a couple of ants. Alright, so we don't need to bring our black level down. We don't need to do anything with our white level. I'm just gonna leave that there for now. Vibrance I'm gonna bring up a bit. Saturation I'm gonna just kiss up a little bit. We're gonna go straight to tone curve. So you can see this image is going to take a whole lot more tone curve manipulation than previous, and that's fine. I'm going to bring my color temperature down. I'm actually going to run the tint a little bit toward the magenta from where I would normally, because of course the flower itself is purple. But the magenta does help. If you watch the way the leaves change, so I'm at plus 27 right now. As I make this greener, the leaves are detectably brown, but from where I started, I add 9. Oh, that's not actually making a whole lot of difference. Well, anyway. So there's your camera JPEG. There's my take on it. Oh, we do need to... I don't think there's a whole lot of issue there. We're going to remove just a little bit of blue. Expand my ranges a little bit to increase. I feel like that's taking care of it. Yeah. So there you go. JPEG as imported, my take. And in fact, I'm not sure about that. And I'm not sure there's anything I can do about it. Nope. It's just the way that the lens renders those. I mean, I'm not sure this is a keeper anyway from the way that the flower changed frame. But we can do these three. So here's this JPEG. Here's this raw file. Not a whole lot of difference in this one. So let's start by bringing up our brightness, our exposure. Just the slightest bit of saturation and vibrance. I actually don't even... I can't even see a difference at this point. Alright, so we'll do vibrance plus 10. Okay, so black level right now, I'm not seeing any. I just have a couple little clip spots, that's fine. Tone curve, shadow. Drag our shadow levels down, drag our highlight levels up. Well, lights. I'm not going to mess with highlights. I think that's actually pretty good. So, no, it's not. So I'm bringing the white level down and the highlight level down about the same amount. Yeah, that's better. Back into the tone curve. I think that's probably good. There's what came out of the camera. There's the as imported, and there's the as processed. And in fact, I actually think I want to go yeah, that's a really subtle difference, but like I feel like it's a little too unnatural. So there we go. Alright, well, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 images edited. Very exciting times, and we're going to call that good. Thanks for playing along. Since I'm streaming to YouTube, like and subscribe.